Morning, YouTubers. Got the Mercedes diesel cleaned up last night. It's not perfect, but it's clean enough where I can start working, getting things, the motor mounts removed and some of the other stuff figured out. These OM 617s are pretty simple, but it cleaned up pretty decent. One thing that alarms me is there's a yellow writing on the transmission, which indicates it might be out of a junkyard. Which I did drive the car down the road and back and it worked. But anyway, the whole thing seems to be in pretty good nick. Probably going to clean it at least once more before I put it in. It ran out of degreaser, and it's just 30 some years of gunk buildup on it. So there it is, and then I got the engine bay on the Dakota cleaned out. So I don't really like to work on grease that I have to. The only problem I've seen with Dakota so far is whoever put the shocks on, I literally took that nut off by finger tight. There's no rubber bushing under it, which is going to cause a rattle. This one here, the bushing, looks like they carved it in half. I had it off there. It's only about half as thick as it's supposed to be. I'd say whoever put the shocks on was inexperienced, had the car jacked up, and let the suspension droop, and they couldn't get the nuts on the shock absorber without jacking up the A-arm, and they did not know that. And so they just deleted the rubber bushing on this side and cut that one down just to get the nuts started. Like I said, I got this off a kid. He was a nice kid, but I'd say that was his issue. I don't know why anyone would leave the bushing off, because the nut was snug down tight. It's not like the bushing disintegrated and had a bunch of clearance. But anyway, power washer took the pinstripe right off the side of the truck. I've got a 3,500 psi pressure washer. I probably should have wide opened it on the side of the truck. But anyway, getting ready to go get a load of fuel. And by fuel, I mean used engine oil for this old Mercedes. I get it off primarily off of one guy that's got a little garage here that I've known him since we were in school, which has been many years ago. Won't go into that, but you can trust him. He's got a barrel. He puts his what we say clean used engine oil in. It doesn't have any water or antifreeze in it, and then he's discards the rest of it in a different place. But he takes good care of me, and looks like we can get about, I don't know, maybe 25 gallons today, maybe 30. But I will run this old car for a long time. It still gets 25 plus miles a gallon, even on used engine oil. So we're going over and get a load of oil here in a minute, and maybe later today I'll get some degreaser and finish this project, and we can start fitting this engine into this truck. Don't foresee any problems except for that front sunk oil pan hitting this sway bar. So we might have to, I don't know, it's awful. The sway bar is a lot more forward than I think. So it just depends. Length is going to be the issue on this motor. Physical size, I don't know that as far as length is the only real issue. We're gonna have to butt the engine up against the firewall, and I'm trying to keep from doing that, just sitting here looking at it, because this is where you change your oil filter. I don't want to have to put that clear up underneath the cowl on the truck here, this area, and have a difficulty changing my oil. So wherever I set the engine, before I weld it down, I will take that cover off and remove the oil filter and see what kind of situation I'm created. I worked on a car one time and had a different engine swapped into it, and the pan set right here against the cross member almost, which was fine, except that's where the drain plug was on the oil. So they put the engine in and then had no way of draining the engine oil. So I don't want to run into those kind of problems. Then another issue, the Dakota has a big aluminum drive shaft. I don't have the means here to weld aluminum. and it's huge diameter anyway. And I was hoping there'd be a carrier bearing in this truck, but there's not. So we might have to source some kind of drive shaft. I've got 2 other Dakotas here, and we'll figure that out. But the slip yoke, which is this is what allows for the difference in the clearance when your suspension travels on the Dakota. Well, on the Mercedes there is none, because the independent rear suspension allows you to bolt the differential solid to the car, so there's no change in length between the tail shaft of the transmission and the snout or the input of the drive shaft or the differential. Everything's fixed solid except for what give in the rubber mounts, and they compensate with these real big rubber discs that are somewhat flexible, you know, to allow for what minimal. There's the disc. That's the Mercedes drive shaft. Anyway, in order to allow for what minimal distance or flex there is, that's what they use. So that's what we're working with, and we'll figure those issues out. And when we get it ready to put in, I'll film it. Maybe get somebody to help me film it. We can actually take some footage of the thing going together. So, thank you.